Hello and welcome to Full-Time Live after Spurs 1, Fulham 1 in the Premier League. Our fifth consecutive draw after a long time away from football, to be honest. We may have been given 48 hours notice to prepare for the match, but it was a meticulous game plan from Scott Parker as we pulled through with a brilliant point that sees us a little bit closer to safety. Get your comments in and we'll try and answer some of your questions as we go throughout the match. I'm joined by Dara Curran.
How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. And Nathan Martin.
Hello, hello.
Right, let's start off, boys. Dara, what a point. Fantastic win. Not a win, draw. It feels like a win, doesn't it?
It does, and I think Ali McCoy said it in the towards the end of the game. Like, if anybody was going to get the winning goal, it would have been Fulham. I think Spurs probably had the better chances in the game, but they didn't take them, and it kind of panned out the way I thought it would, in that Spurs would get the goal and then sit back and just kind of hope that we'd attack them and catch us in the counter. Didn't work out in their favor.
Yeah, Nathan, your reaction after that game?
Oh, that just feels so satisfying. I don't know how the two of you feel, but like, you know how early in the year we'd have these matches that we talk about like sort of being moral victories where, you know, it's great to get a point like against Sheffield United or whoever it might be, or we'd come back. This one feels like a moral victory and a victory in all the sort of ways. The fact that if you can go away to Spurs, a top four side, any season, take a point off them, and not just take a point off them, but actually be the more competitive, the more attacking on the whole throughout the entire match. I mean, it's incredible. I loved how much love do we have for Ali McCoy. I mean, he can announce all the rest of Fulham's TV games as far as I'm concerned. And it was just nice as well to have us be treated with a bit of respect. I mean, it's a small thing, but it's really refreshing to have what Scott is trying to do with this club. And, you know, getting past the penalty kicks, getting past our horrible defensive record, you know, from early on, and sort of have a bit of respect that we are a very solid, good side right now, and we are playing good football.
It's a weird one, Dara, because like Fulham are still in the bottom three, and I know there's games in hand and all of that, but those games in hand are against quite tough teams. But I keep looking at Fulham, I'm just like, we're not the 18th worst side in this division, and we're so far from it. And obviously, we're still paying for the poor start of the season. But you look at this game tonight, and you know, some of those draws, okay, yes, one of them came against Liverpool, but we kind of had Southampton, which was a bit disappointing. We had the Brighton game, which was a bit disappointing, and even Newcastle, to a point, excuse the pun, was not the three that we should have got. But tonight was again proof that this Fulham team is decent. Will it stay up? I don't know. There's still lots of debate there. But like, I look at this side, and Scott's put together a good team, already more points away from home this year than in 18-19, which is a sign as well.
Yeah, I don't think it's just us Fulham fans that can see that we're much more competitive this time, and that we look like we're going to be in the mix at least to stay up. Like a lot of other neutral fans that I've seen have kind of gone, right, if you compare Fulham to like a West Brom, there's no comparison at all. That where they prefer us to be there rather than West Brom, just on the style of play and what we're offering. Yeah, I mean, it's so nice, just especially as Nathan already touched on, like it's a top four team. I don't like at the start of the season, I know some of the Fulhamish guys were kind of gone like, oh, this is like a free hit, some of these bigger games. Well, they're not free hits. We're picking up points in these games, and that's what we need to be able to do.
And anyway, there's no reason to think that there's no reason to think that we can't do the same against Chelsea on Saturday night. I mean, why couldn't we pick up a point against Chelsea? They've been a very shaky side this year. Yes, they have some amazing attacking players, but you know what? The way that Scott has us positioned and set up each game, you know, yes, you know, we aren't as comfortable in front of goal as I might like, but that back line in the midfield knows what they're doing. And you know, can we just? I've seen it in the comments already. But I mean, Areola has got to be, he's fast becoming one of my new favorite Fulham goalkeepers, just how consistent he is game after game. And he kept us in the game today because there were a couple of saves that he made in the first half. We go down 2-0, we're not in it. And, you know, even with Son, yes, Son puts it off the inside of the post, but Areola does force the save. He gets down. He does all the right things.
Yeah, I mean, look at this comment here from Freddie Cooper. Announced the new Riverside stand being named the Alphonse Areola stand. There's so much here. AMAC says Alphonse Areola has to make the France Euro squad now. There's so much praise for Areola. Let's get on to the game a little bit. And, you know, Dara, what can we say about that Harry Kane goal? It was sensational, really. It was one of those where you had to put your hands up, a bit like when someone scores from 40 yards. Maybe Tete could have done a little bit better the cross. Maybe someone could have been a bit tighter to Harry Kane. But ultimately, when Reguilón's putting that kind of ball into the mixer, you just sometimes have to put your hands up and say, that's a bloody great goal. That's why they are normally a top 4 team.
Yeah, it's tough to defend those ones. The move is just so quick. The ball that comes out wide and the touch from Reguilón to control it and then just to whip it in like inch perfect for Harry Kane. If you're being really, really critical, you can say maybe Tete should close down the cross a little bit, and there's probably too much of a gap between the two centre-backs. Maybe Adebayo doesn't get close enough to Kane, but there's not a lot more that they could have done there, to be honest with you.
No, exactly. And speaking of the defence, Nathan, you brought it up, but Paul says, when's the last time you've been this comfortable with a defensive setup? Hughes and Hangland, 100% for me. For me, and, you know, I remember those days of Hughes and Hangland where you went into games and you didn't really think that, okay, Fulham might concede a goal. Any team can concede a goal in any game, can't they? But I would generally went into games thinking no team's going to score more than 2 or 3 unless it's a really, really dodgy day here. And I mean, yes, we've had promotions and decent centre-back partnerships since then, but nothing compares to the likes of Adebayo, or Tosin, that we need to call him after what was on the back of his shirt today. He seems to have dropped the Adebayo.
I'm fine with that. No offense to Tosin, and we can all try to work on saying his last name, and with the performances that he does, you know, we owe it to him. But if he wants to be Tosin for the rest of the year, I am not complaining about that.
No, it does make it easy. Yeah, for us, the amount of people that I've heard butcher his name on a regular basis. But yeah, Aina, Anderson, Adebayo, and it was a little bit shown in that QPR game how far we've come, because we saw some of the kind of old guard defensively come back, and they're just so solid, aren't they?
And let's also like make a point about what we saw tonight. This was a big good, like, we looked at that Spurs team and you looked at the bench of Spurs. That is a strong team. And one of the things I thought was very impressive about it was just the physicality that we brought to the game. And I guess I'm doing this on my own unless some people hop back in. But we brought a lot of physicality to the game. We were able to body up most of the Spurs players. You had that great hit that Winks made or got taken out by Anderson, got sort of checked there. And it's such a refreshing thing to have 2 center backs able to sort of dominate, to win those headers, to stay in there, and to really hold on things. And there you guys are back on there. I don't know what's
we
going
were
on.
always there. We were always there, Nathan. And I was just putting the spotlight on you. I was just giving you the opportunity.
Like, what is it? Avoiding dead air, where you just have to keep talking?
You were never. I was always here, mate. Don't you worry.
Anyway, the physicality is impressive, right? Like, these 2 guys, it's so refreshing having Harry Kane. Yes, he scored the goal, but we actually handled him really well tonight for the majority of the time. I mean, Sissoko was probably the most dangerous player on a couple of his runs, but yeah, Anderson and Tosin, I mean, that partnership is just so refreshing. Plus Areola, I mean, my goodness.
Yeah. This one came in, Dara, and it's been a debate that's been going on all day, really, in Fulhamish circles because of the article Drew put up yesterday. Ben the Jayhawk saying RLC finally proving his class today. Now, he missed a big chance, and we'll come on to that. But I thought today it was probably Loftus-Cheek's best performance. Maybe Liverpool, Leicester, Everton showed glimpses, but I thought all round today, RLC stepped up to the game, and that's not something that could have been said that many more times this season. So fair play. He's got some criticism, and I don't think that Drew's article is necessarily wrong, but I think he maybe showed a few critics that, you know, this is a decent Premier League footballer here, and on his day he can boss that number 10 position.
Well, he was playing a different role today for us, so that probably suited him a bit more today, in that he was a bit further forward. Not necessarily a free role, but just a bit more advanced and linking up between the midfield and the striker. He had a couple of moments where he used his strength well to hold up the ball and bring players into play. I actually watched him really, really closely today. The first half, I wasn't hugely impressed, but I thought he grew into the game. He looks a bit like when he moves, he's just, because he's so tall, he just looks a bit like lumbering at times when he moves around the pitch. I don't mean to sound critical of him.
No,
but,
it's fair enough. Yeah.
But yeah, he really grew into it. I mean, he had that scissor kick chance in the first half, and then he had some moments in the second. But yeah, I thought it was one of his better performances. Yeah. Definitely not a perfect performance, but one of his better performances.
I mean, maybe an area that didn't work today, Nathan, that I was hoping would work a bit better was Decordova-Reid, given kind of a bit more freedom up front. I kind of thought, right, the shackles are off. He's been finishing so well in recent games that here we go, Bobby's going to get a brace. Didn't really happen for him. He had a few fleeting moments, but the moment that changed the game was Tete coming off for Lookman, Bobby going back into that kind of right wing position, which he must have been thinking, bloody hell, I thought I'd shaken this off. And Lookman changed the game, didn't he? And yeah, clearly he did, because I think Lookman is one of our best players this year, but still the way that he can come off the bench and change it, and he just has something that maybe only Neeskins can even rival him to, which is the ability to beat a man, put a cross into the box, and just make defenders scared. And that's exactly what happened for the goal, wasn't it?
Oh God, it was beautiful. And I have to say, like before we forget about him, it was really, like, I thought Teddy actually had a really nice performance today. He had another good run out, and he adds something to our side. But as soon as Lookman comes on, he just transforms the game. And that's also where I think players like Ruben being able to lay it off, the interchange. Lookman and Anthony Robinson just have a really nice connection when they're matching up and they're running off each other. And that sort of speed, combined with the fact that Lookman has this sort of preternatural ability to hold on to the ball. He's got that low center of gravity. I mean, he's really just an incredible player. I mean, I'm just sort of really impressed at his ability to come off the bench and immediately make an impact like that. That's such a difficult challenge. And yeah, Ross is exactly right. I mean, I don't know if we've had a Fulham player that have come in and also been willing to just work hard and do the sort of the mental things. Like, he's someone who I think really benefits from being in Scott's system. And like a lot of these players, and Lookman has to be just one of the first names on the team sheet going forward.
Yeah, and Ross, I think you make a point. Yeah, whether Leipzig will sell to us, I think is still really unlikely, given the fact that I think they see him as a long-term player. But this is if Fulham stay up, and that's a big if. Tony surely has got some clout there, because he is worth a lot of money for the fact that I think is not far off single-handedly being our only goal threat that will keep us in the division this year. I think it's he could be worth as much as 30-40 million to Fulham. I think if we were to try and bid for him in the summer. Let's come on to Cavaleiro. Obviously, he took that goal really, really well. Cavaleiro outstanding today, like a prime Alexis Sanchez, and hoping he would build on that from EJ. I think EJ might be getting slightly carried away, but still, good header from Cavaleiro. His first goal from open play in over a year as well for Cav. And we saw that header that he had against Southampton, and he skied it over the hammy end, and it was a really frustrating moment. Today, though, got his head on it, stuck it past Lloris, and that'll do him the world of good, because I thought his overall game as well was brilliant today. The way he can hold up the ball is magical.
Yeah, I thought a lot of the good stuff that we did in the first half, especially his running, came down the channels and we managed to get it wide. The issue that we seemed to have was then there was nobody in the center.
Yeah.
And that kind of changed. Like, I'd kind of been calling for Bobby Decordova-Reid to go up front, and he actually seemed to me anyway to look better when he went into right wing back. I don't know why.
It's not, isn't it?
But then we had like Lookman, who just made that difference, and it was one of the only times that we had bodies in the box. Like, it wasn't just Cav that was in the box for that header. There was two other guys in there to aim at. But
yeah, it's a really frustrating.
It was a peculiar header. He like almost turned his back on it. Did you notice that?
Yeah,
such a strange one. But look, it went in. I'm delighted with that.
It's frustrating though. Like, I don't know how the two of you feel, but it is a little bit frustrating that I think we actually we get pretty good crosses into the box. Like Robinson and Aina and Tede were both doing a really good job of looking for that ball. But we just, that's the problem with RLC or with Bobby, is like, we're just not getting enough bodies that can actually put a head on it. And I don't know if, someone asked about Mitro not being in the squad, and I know there's a lot going on there. Mitro doesn't get up the pitch fast enough to be able to kind of hit those counterattacks and actually get a header. But it is a shame, because I think we should be creating a bit more off of that. It was so nice to see Cav put one away. And Dara, you said in the chat, but my gosh, he is a man that lives on confidence. I mean, gets a few touches under his belt, scores a goal, and Cav is just pirouetting around the Spurs back line. It's just incredible.
Yeah, he really, really was good today, just in general. So, well done. And Will, is Mitro not being in the squad today significant? I think. Well, people are talking about an injury, Dara, but who knows with Mitro? The situation's clearly not good, though, is it? It's we saw his performance against QPR on Saturday. It was poor at best. I don't see how he adds to this team right now. I really, really don't.
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest. There's so many questions that we just don't really know the answers to, and Scott Parker and Fulham tend to be quite tight-lipped and keep their cards quite close to their chest when it comes to like injuries or COVID-related things or whatever it might be, anything else that's going on behind the scenes. We don't really know what is actually going on there. I think there's still a part for Mitrovic to play. There's definitely certain teams, I think, or styles of that will suit him better, but against the bigger team where we actually need to sit back and look to counter, he just doesn't really suit that style of football. Maybe that's why he wasn't even an option on the bench today. Who knows? But I definitely see, apart from against some of the smaller teams where we're going to have more possession and we'll be able to get balls into the box.
Yeah, and I think it would be stupid to sell him in January. That's all the only thing that I know with Mitro. Like, yes, do I see him long-term in Parker's plans? Not 100%. Do you sell a good striker like that when you've got one just for some money in January? It seems utterly, utterly pointless to me. He will have some use. He might get a goal or two. That goal or two might be the difference between staying in the league and not staying in the league. He's not the linchpin of this side that he used to be, but selling him in January is utterly futile to me. It's not even like it's a normal market where you could use the 20-30 million you get from Mitro and buy a great replacement from abroad. Like, no one wants to come to this country and ready strikers, Premier League strikers willing to come in, even if you've got the money, are pretty few and far between. Speaking of strikers, Kamara, this one from Polish Pudding, did come on, and Polish Pudding says Kamara actually came on and played well, showed strength, but just didn't look up to see Lookman free. I was having an argument with my dad, who was watching the game with me for basically the whole time was Kamara was on, because Dad was like, why are we bringing on Kamara? We should have brought on knee skins. And I was saying, look, Kamara gives you, release pressure. He gets up the pitch and, he has the odd moments of quality. And Nathan, I was proved right and wrong in that kind of moment, because I was proved right. Yes, he did well to kind of come on and relieve some pressure, but also the quality was so lacking. And if he spots Lookman, it was a bit similar. I mean, it's
we're all screaming. We're all screaming at it, right? Like, and we're all screaming at the television at the same time. It was sort of the best and worst of Kamara. You just got to see all sides of of his potential, but also his sort of problems. And it was tricky because I sort of felt bad at the Lookman. I think he got on top of the ball a little bit, like he was just a little bit over it. By the time he looked up, he didn't see him. And there were a couple other times where he just missed a couple passes. I do have sympathy for a player who's coming off the bench for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, trying to get their touch up to scratch. And Kamara was sort of definitely warming up into the game. But what he did do that you're exactly right, that Kamara couldn't do, is he made some really nice runs where Spurs, who started to press up to try to pick up that winner, got pinned back. And when he won that corner kick towards the end, I mean, that's a huge move right there, taking the strength to go down with Davinson Sanchez at the corner. And particularly, I just want to mention this is like we sort of lacked a few other players in the game today that we're sort of not sure 100% where they are. Like Zambo did not look 100% today. Agisa does not look like he's at it. And you have someone who's just had COVID. If any of these players have gone through this on any level, like it's really, really hard to gauge. Like, for all we know, Mitro has had some sort of, mild version of it. Maybe he's got some sort of, repercussion. I'm just throwing that out there, but it's really hard to know kind of where the players are and at that. And so it was nice to have Kamara's energy. That's kind of the point.
Yeah. Dara, this one from Travis. Now, I didn't know this until I saw this comment, but it makes sense. I know he picked up a yellow. He said, who would you play in place for Anderson missing this weekend with his 5th yellow? You're normally quite on top of things like suspensions and stuff. So my question is, A, is he missing for the Chelsea game? B, who do we put in if Travis is right?
I hadn't actually noticed that, but I'm just going to double check it now.
I thought it reset.
It does reset at some point, but we aren't halfway through the season, certainly not as far as Fulham's games are concerned. So I don't know at what point it does reset, Nathan, if it's a date, whether it's a games thing. We'll get Dara on it now.
Halfway point, so I thought it was the halfway point, which would have been the 19th game week, and I think we're on the 18th at the moment.
And as far as Fulham's concerned, we're on the 16th. Or is it game weeks? Doesn't matter how many games Fulham play.
I don't see anything here about 5 yellow cards, but I could be wrong.
Okay, well, we'll wait and see.
Cards. No,
he definitely got a yellow card, but he definitely got a yellow card. That's all I know.
No.
He got it towards the end for time wasting, and when he was having a weird moment with Harry Kane.
No, he's only had two this
He's only had 2 yellow cards.
That's the second.
Yeah.
Okay, Travis, you're wrong. Sorry, mate.
But can we just at least give Anderson some love?
Travis.
I loved Anderson. Speaking of the physicality, just the little check, the body check on Harry Weeks was fantastic. And Spurs players were throwing themselves around the pitch throughout the entire game. I mean, just some of the ridiculous, lack of content. So it was just lovely to see a few moments where they actually got something for their troubles. And I'm all about that. It's wonderful to see on that back line.
Proper, it reminded me of a few players in my Sunday team that would do that. Just, the old lumbering bloke.
Yeah, Ali McCoy's love for Harrison Reed. I just loved, he just got so excited watching this little redheaded guy run around just laying in brutal tackles. I mean, you could just hear the delight in his voice as he's listening.
Dara, I'll bring this one to you. A lot of people have asked it, so I feel like it's pertinent. Look, it's an encouraging result, but we can't paper over the cracks when it comes to the fact we are desperate for a centre forward who can score. There's debate as to who exactly Fulham can sign in this window. I still am yet to see a suggestion better than Divock Origi for a centre forward if we need one in this transfer window. Of course, though, if we were to try and bring him on loan, someone has to be gone because we've already got too many loans. Have you got any suggestions as to who is that centre forward that can score? Or maybe it's Cavaleiro. No one thought Decadova-Reid was going to go on a scoring run. Now maybe Cavaleiro goes on a scoring run. Maybe we don't need that centre forward. Am I being too optimistic?
Yes, definitely too optimistic on that one. I can't see Cavaleiro being the saviour for us, unfortunately. I honestly don't know who that centre forward is, but it's glaringly obvious that we do need one, and Scott alluded to it. I think he's been pretty on top of most of the things where our weaknesses are and where we need reinforcing. It's a tricky one. Obviously, the two loan spots are filled at the moment, so unless we go elsewhere for a loan, or we buy somebody outright, although I think funds are pretty tight at the moment. So we would definitely need to offload, and Seri might provide some money. Who else? You'd likely see Johansson, McDonald probably cut. You gotta remember that Onama's going to come back into the squad. So there needs to be a place for him there somewhere. Who else is going to go? If we can make money, sell some players, then we can probably buy outright, but it'll probably go down to the wire.
It's a bad time to sell. It's a really bad time.
Knowing Tony Khan, it'll be last deadline day, last minute that we'll bring in a striker.
Yeah, I mean, Ross Davison says here, Gale or King, and they're not bad. They're not bad shouts. Would I love Josh King at Fulham? Absolutely. I'm over Dwight Gale. He's the new Jason Kumas for anyone who remembers those times where basically every transfer window, Jason Kumas was always linked with Fulham. But I know he can get a goal, etc., but I don't think he's the answer. Josh King is 100% the answer, but I don't think is realistic. One final thing I want to ask you about. This whole 48 hours thing, there's been a bit of a back and forth, Nathan, between Parker and Mourinho. And I thought Mourinho was a bit of a disgrace, to be honest, with what he said about Fulham should offer an apology if they issue a first team 11. If Jose Mourinho, right, in an important game, got given Liverpool, United, Chelsea, doesn't matter, with 48 hours notice, are you telling me he'd be like, oh, yeah, it's absolutely fine. It is what it is. Absolutely no way. I think Scott Parker was 100% right within his rights to be angry about the situation. Did he have to deal with it? Yes, there's not much else he could do. But Mourinho was it was clear mind games for me. So I actually don't think that Mourinho thought that. I think he was just trying to, use a little bit of mind tactics towards Parker. But some of the outcrying of Spurs fans saying that Fulham fans are crying. I saw someone on TalkSport today that's saying that Parker shouldn't have been complaining about the match because there's a pandemic on. Like, yes, I get it. Parker's allowed to be angry about something. Just because something worse is happening doesn't mean he can't be frustrated at a personal situation, which is a ridiculous bit of scheduling. But there's some vindication here because we went into the game, we got a point, and Park had the last laugh, didn't he?
Yeah, and I was like, it's vintage Mourinho, and what was also vintage Mourinho was he has this weird macho thing. If you ever watch him, where it's like when he goes for the handshakes after the game, watch him. He'll like put his hand on the back of someone's neck, and it's like there's this sort of weird Spanish or Portuguese sort of like assertion of dominance. And so yes, he and Parker have an amicable relationship, but there's also sort of Mourinho, reminding the young cub like who's really the boss as they came on the pitch tonight. And that's what kind of irritated me, because it's like, yes, everybody's like, oh, it's nice to see that they're friends and it's all good, but Mourinho's still talking shit in the middle of on television. And there were some very stupid football journalists that are sort of buying into this, and someone who I think he supports Villa over at the Telegraph, forgot his name, was sort of like poo-pooing Fulham having to do this. And it's like, we are a club fighting for relegation. We have players that we've been very honest about. We have a COVID outbreak at the club, like many clubs do right now. We're juggling that. We're juggling, time windows and the rest of that. We're also trying to respect, like everyone's talked to the magic of the FA Cup. We're trying to respect the cup, not just, trot out a youth side, even though we don't really need the FA Cup this year. We need to stay in the Premier League. And just the sort of disrespect and sort of the just kind of like just suck it up, it was just BS. And I loved it. Out of all of that complaining, the sort of tears of Mourinho, we came out, we got the draw, we were the better side, we bumped their players around a bit, we left a few bruises and marks, and that is very satisfying, and I hope we can carry that into Saturday. But the real question is like, will this have a knock on some of our later games? I mean, players getting tired by the time we hit Brighton and Burnley, we need to be rested and ready for that.
Yeah, I mean, EJ puts it here. Dara says Mourinho's comments played right into our hands. Definitely mentioned him in the team talk, similar to Marcondes. And you know what? Parker's team talk probably was made a little bit easier, and there would have been some motivation for those Fulham players because they'll have felt hard done by. They thought they had a week off, and they were probably preparing for a week off. There's no way we played the team we did against QPR if we knew that we would have played Spurs in midweek. So some vindication, and I hope that there might be a couple of beers on the coach tonight because they deserve it, the lads, considering what they were asked to do and the task of having to play the likes of Spurs away within 48 hours. Fair play.
It's a funny one. I don't understand where Mourinho is coming from whatsoever. But he just loves to play the villain. He loves to play up to that and just play the mind games. And I definitely think Parker's played on that. That being said, I think Parker probably did have somewhere in the back of his mind a realization that this game could have been a possibility, because even I thought that this could have been a possibility beforehand. It's not really, it's the FA that's at fault, let's be honest here. And I think they're at fault for the cancellation as well, and people thinking that we're the ones that pulled the plug on the game 2 hours before it happened or whatever, which is absolutely ridiculous. On this whole topic of the 48 hours, the game being put on, I don't understand where people have lost the point completely, that it's not, it's about the communication and the lateness of everything, not that we have to play the game, not that the previous one's been called off, and not Spurs' run at the start of the season. Oh, we had to play 4 games in a week. Who cares? Like, that's nothing to do with this at all. It's besides the point.
Yeah, exactly. I think, and that's what someone on Twitter was saying, was that Spurs fans just couldn't understand. Was saying it was just Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday. None of us are complaining about the schedule. We never said it was. We were played in the Championship for most of the last 6 years. We understand what it's like to play midweek and play on Saturday, then play at the weekend. That's not our complaint here. Right. It's being told less than 48 hours to go that you've got a Premier League football match, and Spurs fans just couldn't quite seem to get their head around that. So says more about them, I think, than us. Let's a couple more questions. Ben Jarman put this one on. Hello, Ben. Thoughts on Kenny Tete at right backs? Looked very lively for a good 60 minutes, and we love to see it, Nathan.
We love to see it, and it's just nice. It's just a reminder. Same thing with Congolo against QPR. It is. We just wish one of these defenders or wingers was a striker, because other than striker, we're in really good position kind of across the squad. It was one of the things with the QPR game that I loved was like, yeah, we rotated, but we actually had a pretty solid side that was out there, and it's really encouraging. And Tete, just adds a bit of flair, looks very good, adds some speed. And I think he's also just Premier League class, which is another thing we haven't always had. But you just have players who can go toe to toe with Harry Kane, with Saad, with whoever it is. And yes, they may not be able to hang with them all the time, but they're not going to get run away with or run over with. Unfortunately, like we had Ream, we had McDonald. Sometimes it didn't always feel like that.
Yeah, right. Well, I will be on the podcast tomorrow with Peter Rutzler and Jack Collins. So do have a listen when it's out tomorrow afternoon for some more reaction and Peter's view on the game. But lads, we got to be pleased with that, right? A point away against Spurs, a fantastic haul for Fulham, eh?
Yeah, and more than what Leeds came away with. So that I'm just going to throw that out there.
And Bielsa's a genius. So
that's right. Don't forget that.
They said if Bielsa can't do it, then no one can. So
Scotty can. So,
all right, thank you for being on Full Time tonight.
Cheers.
What have you got there?
It's a dessert stout, Christmas stout, upside down Christmas cake.
Wow.
It's a bold move for 10:50
style. Yeah,
that is extravagant for 10:50 on a Wednesday night in January. But I love your style, and we're celebrating, so why the hell not? All right, thank you for watching today. Thanks for all your comments. This has been Full Time Live, Spurs 1, Fulham 1. Come on, you whites.
You.